Hey friends, it's Jasmine, and I hope that you all are doing well. Welcome to my channel if you are new, and welcome back if you are a returning subscriber. Today, I'm going to be sharing with you a new witchy book. So some of you may know that recently I was a vendor at the Hannah Paranormal event here in my city of Indianapolis, Indiana. I was a vendor with Third Eye Fortunes, where we were offering tarot, oracle, palmistry, runes, and other esoteric services. Being a vendor at the Hannah Paranormal event was super, super fun, as it was my first year actually going to the event. And I've heard about the Hannah House here in our city for a long time, but this was actually my first time being physically on the grounds. And talking about the Hannah House could be an entirely other video. It's a very historic home, and there's definitely a lot of activity and a lot of energy there. However, this video, I wanted to talk about a book that I picked up actually from the event. So during one of my breaks, at the vendor booth, towards the tail end of the event, I was kind of walking around and visiting with a friend who was also at the event. And she and I were kind of checking out some of the booths, as I hadn't had a chance to really see some of the other vendors, as I was really busy in my tent doing readings. So I was delighted to have an opportunity to be able to see what some other people were offering and doing. And one of my friend's friends was there and had a tent as well. That is how I stumbled across this book called Emergent Magick. Sorry that my ring light is kind of picking up a little bit on the cover of the book, but this is what the cover looks like. So this is Emergent Magick. And so I came over to the tent that my friend was helping at, and that's where this book was. And initially I was offered a little bit of a discount if I wanted to purchase the book because of who my friend was, but I very much believe in supporting local and, paying our authors what they are worth. So I politely declined the discount, and I paid full price for this book, and a little bit extra as well. So I, of course, was delighted to be able to, read another witchy book, and then also read a book that, my friend recommended I actually check out. And she is someone who I have some respect for and who I would trust their recommendation. So she told me that I would really like the book, and that she's sure that I could find something out of it that would benefit myself. And I very much believe that no matter what the book is, you can take something from it, even if it's a book that you strongly disagree with, or even if it's a book that everything in the book you don't necessarily resonate with. I believe that by reading books like that, it kind of reinforces why we don't necessarily believe or practice or resonate that way. And I do think that reading occult academic literature is always important for our practice, whether you're listening to it as an audiobook or reading it as a Kindle version if they offer that, or a physical copy book. I think that being a well-read witch is always the best type of witch to be. I think that going back to the witch's pyramid, that kind of takes us to our to know, as we have our to know, to will, to dare, to keep silent. So my first impression of this book, Emergent Magick, was that I really enjoyed the cover of the book. Black and white and red are just some of my favorite colors in general, and I thought the imagery was really interesting. This is what the back of the book looks like. I appreciate the simplicity of the front cover and the back. So the front says, Emergent Magick, rebuilding our tribes through ritual and meaning. And I'm going to read what the back of the book says. The back of the book says, magic is the art of altering consciousness. Emergent magic, rebuilding our tribes through ritual and meaning. outlines a new philosophy of spiritual development through the manipulation of consciousness. I will say that I do vibe with that definition. Unlike its predecessors, Emergent Magick, EMK, focuses less on the results and more on personal development and harmonious group dynamics. It reintroduces tribalism in a modern and accepting form. The ultimate act of rebellion to create your own culture. EMK also recognizes the shamanic properties of psychedelics and their importance in bringing back the initiatory experience lacking in materialistic societies. Magic informing magic. Practitioners of emergent magic use ancient modern techniques to make changes in themselves and the world. It encourages its users to develop constantly evolving personal belief systems based on their own spiritual experiences and to share those experiences with their tribe. Contrary to past spiritual organizations, EMK uses democratic consensus and do not have rankings or grade systems. Order of Emergent Magick, Scroll of Thoth Press. And they do have a website, which is www.emergentmagick.com. Blurb in this book that kind of speaks to the advanced reader, which says, maybe you've read a few books or a lot of books. Maybe you practice magic already. If you're lucky, you may already be part of a magical order or some other group. The best part about Emergent Magick is that it in no way tells you to stop doing that. We're not going to tell you that we have a better path. What this book holds for you is another perspective on how you can be using your magic and how you can be making it better. The only exception is that if you are only reading about magic, that needs to stop now. Emergent magic only works by doing. Now, I think that's some pretty good advice as a whole. I believe that it's important to have your to know, and part of the to know of the Witch's Pyramid is taking some time to actually educate yourself by picking up a book, listening to another witch like you are right now here on YouTube, or what other platform you choose to use. I think that building your to know and understanding your to know, having a baseline of knowledge is the first step. But at a certain point, you have to move past that and you have to move into what I consider to be the to dare, where you dare to do it. And, you move past just the armchair, or as some people call it, armchair witchery. You have to kind of move past that and actually start putting your knowledge to use. And in my opinion, that's the difference between just knowledge and wisdom. Knowledge is what we learn here in books such as these, or like I said, through talking and communicating and learning from other witches. But wisdom is applying knowledge with experience, is what makes wisdom. And only through doing are you really going to learn what really works for you and what doesn't. I do think that's some fairly solid advice that they have in here for the advanced reader, and I liked that. I liked that they addressed beginner witches as well as seasoned witches, because I do think, like I said earlier, no matter your experience in the craft, whether you've been practicing for 10 hours, 10 days, 10 months, or 10 years, I think we should all be consistently walking the spiral path and trying to educate ourselves, and staying up to date on occult academia. So here are the chapters in the book Emergent Magick. Chapter 1 is the history. Understanding EMK philosophy requires a basic understanding of magical systems that have come before. Chapter 2, Magic. A definition on what magic is from an EMK perspective. It also contains some theories on why magic works and how it may be the thing that created the universe. Chapter 3 is Practice.
Chapter 3, Practice.
Becoming a magus requires skills you may have never developed before. Even if you have, this chapter provides exercises that better prepare you for group magic. Chapter 4, Purpose. What is magic really good for? Why should you be practicing magic at all? Chapter 5, Emergence. What makes magic emergent? This chapter gives more detail and clarification on what we mean by magic informing magic. Chapter 6, Tribe. How to form and maintain your own emergent tribe. This chapter explains why working magic with others better fulfills its purpose and makes you a better magus. Chapter 7, Drugs. How substances can be used to alter consciousness and the dangers of doing so. Chapter 8, Ritual. How to write and perform rituals for yourself and your entire emergent tribe. Chapter 9, Ancestors. Ancestor veneration is the oldest form of magic. Emergent magic follows in line with that tradition. Chapter 10, Sabbat. The meta ritual of all emergent tribes. The Sabbat is an integral part of binding your magic together with the magic of others. Then we have the appendix, the Order of Emergent Magi, our example of an emergent tribe and how we approach magic. Also, an organization created to help you build your own tribe and link those tribes together. Then there's also the bibliography and resources, books and other resources used for this book and highly recommended for all aspiring and practicing magi. That I enjoyed about this book, Emergent Magick, is that they talk about the many different names of spiritual practitioners, and they address that they use the term magi or magus for like a singular person. And I really identify with that terminology in this book. I mean, I myself personally have chosen the label as witch, but I do think that also the word magus or magi is another great way to kind of refer to spiritual practitioners in general, as opposed to specifically just witches. Now, like any book, there are going to be things that I really vibe with and things that maybe I don't so much. And I wouldn't necessarily say that there was any part of this book that really rubbed me the wrong way or that I didn't necessarily vibe with. But I will say that, in my opinion, a lot of this book is stuff that I have also found within chaos magic, for an example. And the idea that, you know, you do what works, regardless necessarily of personal belief. I find that to be a reoccurring theme in this book, which isn't necessarily a good thing or a bad thing. My favorite part, I think, of this book was actually towards the end when it got more into some of the group rituals in this book, and I will share some with you now. So one of them in here, which I actually talked with my coven Solar Court with about, and we just kind of discussed this ritual, which that was the Headless Rite is what this is called, which has these roles: Incanter, Anointers, God, Goddess, Earth, Air, Fire, Water, and Mighty Dead. There's also another one in here that looked kind of interesting as well, and that is the OEM, Order of Emergent Magick, Ohio Serpent Mound Ancestors Ritual, which has the roles as Narrator, Evoker, Invoker, Egg Mother, and Drummers. It just looked kind of interesting. And some of the group rituals that are in this book are very, very, very theatrical. Almost more so to the point where I would say, to a degree, that by putting on some of the suggested emergent magic rituals, I feel like it almost comes off to me as I don't want to say less like magic, but I want to say more like ritualistic theater that your invited guests may benefit from in a magical way. And also by participating in some of that magical theater, the participants may also be benefiting in a magical way. Feels in some way like a pamphlet for Emergent Magick, as they basically break down how they perceive magic to work and operate, and how you can form your own tribe, which I will say that I sort of have mixed feelings about using the word tribe. Part of that feels good, but part of that also feels wrong to use the word tribe for myself. I think when I think of the word tribe, I personally think of more of a shamanistic sort of lens. And I feel like shamanism at this point in time in my craft and practice isn't really a main focus in my craft. Not that I have anything against that per se, but I would never call myself a shaman. Like I said, identify with witch because I practice witchcraft. So to me, that's what makes sense to me. And some of this does kind of feel a little bit recruity, almost like, this is like a guidebook, if you will, I feel like, for someone who could start up an Emergent Magick group. And I don't think that that's a bad thing. I think that having, if you so choose, let me say it like this, if you so choose, I think that having people in your life that you can share your spirituality and your practice with is a beautiful thing. And I don't think it's a bad thing that a lot of this book kind of does read as a spiritual pamphlet on how to build magical communities. I just think that that's something that isn't necessarily super prevalent on the back summary of the book. And so if someone was looking at this book, like when I was looking at this book, Emergent Magick, Rebuilding Our Tribes Through Ritual and Meaning, I kind of figured that we would be really just focusing on ritual, the aspect of ritual. And I was right to a degree. This book does hyper focus on ritual. It focuses on group ritual, and it focuses on building this emergent tribe. So that's just something to note when you pick this book up, to know that that's kind of the sort of book that you will be reading. I think my favorite part about this book was the chapter where it talks about building your citadel, which is not necessarily a new concept to me or to my practice, but it was a new way that it was worded, and I really enjoyed it. Also, the book does have some pretty cool imagery as well. Here's the part about the citadel in the book that I really enjoyed. While solitary magic can only get you so far, every magist needs a strong foundation. We guarantee that if you practice the exercises in Liber F, things will get weird. More than one magist has fallen to addiction, depression, paranoia, disassociation, and zealotry. Now, I will say that this personally stuck out to me because I've talked in the past before about how the left-hand path and the right-hand path, and how I feel people often go in two very extreme directions when it comes to magic. I feel like on the right-hand path, you have like the New Age movement, and you have this concept of ascension. And oftentimes I find people who walk the right-hand path can come off very zealotous and very judgmental. And it's almost like the light blinds them, and they are almost like possessed by this light being and obsessed with ascending or evolving. And they can be just as toxic as the stereotype of people who are more left-hand path. Now, that being said, I find that more people on the left-hand path do tend to fall into substance abuse. I won't say depression because I feel like that can be on both sides, but I do find substance abuse to be much more prevalent, I would say, on the left-hand path than I find on the right-hand path, but both paths can be equally as toxic. Creation of a citadel gives a safe place for a magist to retreat to when needing a calm and safe space from which to push their magic further. It may help to think of your citadel as a virtual space within the fluid universal consciousness. Now, this is a practice that I have been doing actually since I was a little kid, where I have essentially built spaces in my consciousness or in my mind for my astral body to go to. Some of these spaces might be the warmth of a campfire in order for me to escape, recharge, or retreat. And other places might be astral temples that I have built and erected and practice in on an astral level. And so seeing that in this book was very confirming for me that this is something that other witches are practicing as well. And I've seen in some other books this practice also kind of be labeled as a path working, but the concept of calling it a citadel was definitely new for me. And that's something that I can definitely say I can take away from this book. And also, I think this is a phenomenal book if you are looking to get into practicing magic in group settings with other people, or if you are looking to start your own group. I don't know if I would necessarily recommend this book to the beginner level practitioner, as in my opinion, it doesn't necessarily cover beginner level magical material. However, it does give you a bit of a good intermediate level introduction to magic. So if you already have a little bit of an idea of magic and how magic works and your own definitions of cosmology, I think that you could benefit from this book. Also, if you are interested, like I said, in participating in magical groups or having a group of your own, I think you could benefit from this book. Anyways, that is going to be my thoughts on Emergent Magick. I will put their link below in the description if you would like to check out their website or maybe even pick up a copy for yourself. And remember, support your authors, okay? And read that material. Do your research. Whether or not you agree with everything in the book is not what's important. What's important is you stay a well-read witch and that you don't allow yourself to become stagnant. Because when you become stagnant, your magic becomes stagnant. And that is not what you want, okay? If you've made it this far in the video, I appreciate you so much, and make sure to like and subscribe if you haven't already, and if you would like to see more delicious witchy goodness and content. If you have any questions regarding my opinions on Emergent Magick, make sure to leave that below in the comments. Or if you have any book recommendations for me to check out, and if you're an author and would like me to check out your book, let me know what book you've written and I would be happy to check that out. Until next time, blessed be.